In today's episode, I'm joined by Jayne Twiddle, Head of Operations at TAUK, and someone who's lived every level of a state agency, from national leadership roles to championing personal agency. Jayne shares why freedom only works when the foundations are right, and how the human side of this job is often the most overlooked. Hope you enjoyed the episode. If you're an estate agent that wants to stay ahead of the competition and to make more profits, then you need to talk to Iceberg Digital. Iceberg doesn't just sit alongside your CRM system, it replaces it. It's the UK's leading AI operating CRM system for estate agents, combining your CRM system, prospecting, marketing, website, and compliance all in one ecosystem. Your CRM system becomes fully automated, taking care of those repetitive tasks your team shouldn't be doing. Your prospecting runs 24/7, scanning the portals, capturing property addresses, matching them with your database, and sending them personal outreach faster than any human ever could. Your marketing is automatically written to match your tone of voice. Blogs, property descriptions, vendor updates, all done for you. And your website becomes AI driven, adapting to each visitor in real time and making your agency discoverable on Google and also on tools like ChatGPT. Agents across the UK are already using Iceberg to run a leaner, smarter, and more profitable business. Visit icebergdigital.co.uk and mention the Estate and Consultancy podcast when you book your demo to get an exclusive perk. Jayne, welcome to the podcast. It is fantastic to have you on.
Brilliant to be here. Thanks, Chris, for inviting me.
So we've met quite a few times at various TA UK events, so I know your background, but for those listening in who don't know your background, talk us through sort of how we got to today effectively.
Oh, wow. Well, today, as of in a couple of weeks, New Year's Eve, I'll be 57. And I think I got into a state agency around when I was about 35, actually. So fairly late newcomer, fairly late newcomer to it, if that's the phrase. But I suppose I came to it out of necessity. I had three small daughters at the time. I was looking to leave my husband at the time, trying to find a plan to get away. I needed a serious job rather than I'd been in hairdressing, I'd been in doing child photography, I'd sold perfume, oh God, list as long as your arm.
Name it. Yeah.
I'd been the Asda Golden Greeter girl on the front of Asda, telling you when your turkeys had been reduced at Christmas and things like that, and the store detective, all sorts of stuff. So, but what all those sort of things had in common were people. And I saw a tiny little advert one day in our York Free Press, it's called, and it described this role, and I thought, actually, I could do that. And that was a viewing role for hunters. And it fit in with a weekend, and I could do some hours on a weekend. I went and did that job, and within a couple of weeks, I thought, wow, this is for me. This is for me. I loved it, absolutely loved it. And at the first sort of awards night that came probably a couple of months later, it just so happened, I asked Kevin Hollingrake, who was my boss at the time, and I said to him at the award night, the next full-time job that comes up, I want it. I want to get out. Anyway, he'd had a few at the time, as we all had. And
Perfect time. Perfect time to ask.
that's right. If you don't ask, you don't get. But good to his word. And obviously, I'd done a few things by then. I would imagine I got converted some things. That a role came up in sales progression at the time. That's what we did. And he said, "Yep, go into that team," which I did. And that enabled me to leave my husband and get a rented house on my own at the time with the girls. And then it went from there. So I did sales progression. I ran that department then. Then I went back to be a negotiator, then a valuer, and then I ran a couple of the branches. And then I worked for After that, I think I worked for RealCube, which was our CRM that we were building at the time. So looking at experience there. Then I did auditing, which was basically a bit dull, but it was auditing of for compliance and such like. But also from that, because of my experience, I'd also um, could see gaps where agents were using data to be able to get sales and extra business and stuff. So the my role grew from there, and that went into basically then into franchise support, and then franchising as a whole, that franchise support role grew, and I went out business developing and that into to the branches, and then eventually ended up heading up that department, and then eventually there being franchise director of that element. And then I left Hunters. Didn't know what I was going to do for a little bit 'cause there was a lot of changes at Hunters, and I left there. wasn't quite sure where I was going to be in my mid-50s. Decided to set up on my own. I did a bit of auditing again for a little bit. Again, I found that a bit boring for me. And then I met TAUK, and I thought, right, I'll go be an agent again, which I did for a little bit and I enjoyed. But then Tim were talking to me, and there was an opportunity to be their head of ops, and it just fit perfectly. And I love the culture and people, and I've ended up there. You can cut that down if you need, Chris.
It's quite a CV to say the least. And I think the one thing that really sort of stood out for me there is that obviously you mentioned obviously having a young family and obviously a change of partner situation. How important do you think that sort of no plan B and I kind of need to make this work sort of mentality has kind of helped you out over the years?
Are massive. I have it's only latterly in the last few years that I've felt, okay, I felt secure. I think that security has always been something that I have needed in financial security, I mean, because I didn't when I didn't marry somebody, unfortunately, with lots of money, and I was 18 at the time. I got married at 19. I had my first daughter at 20. Um, and I'd got 3 daughters by I was 27, so you're never gonna have any money. And, and so I, that was absolutely critical. Financial security was absolutely critical, and it does keep you on your toes, and you absolutely need to have that security.
Hmm. Talk me through. So obviously, when you were with Hunters on sort of the national operations director there, you obviously saw behind the scenes of a lot of estate agency businesses across the Hunters franchise. What did that teach you about what agents struggle with behind the scenes that you completely didn't know before you took that role?
Um, well, this might lead me to that, but one thing I always felt was, um, when I went into any branch, I could tell whether that branch was gonna be any good, receptive. I knew what was behind the paperwork when I walked in because of the energy in that branch, okay? So that was one teaching straight away, okay? The energy in a branch and wanting to be there is massive. Um, you might need to just repeat that question again because my head this
No problem.
unfortunately, with me, I'm a dyslexic thinker, and I do tend to it takes me a little bit of time just to, digest things, and sometimes my brain goes off there, so sorry about.
No problem at all. I'm a dyslexic reader, so don't worry about it. When it comes to reading a piece of paper, trust me. You should. So we're a right pair for this podcast. So talk me through. So what were the main sort of challenges you realized that agents were working with when you kind of got to see sort of behind the curtain effectively in those businesses?
Yeah, well, um, the biggest thing was balancing costs, actually, staff costs. Massive. They were the biggest things because a lot of the time the estate agency branches spent, and I think we had a metric which is a standard metric really, that you do not want to be spending over a third of your income on that on these staff, and unfortunately a lot of staff, it's people business that you'd see staff costs that were 50% and above, and there was not enough profit for them. So that then can lead to the fact that the franchise owners don't necessarily well, they don't earn as much sometimes as the valuer that they have going out. So, and often that tends to be the difference whereby I think some of the issues is where the franchise owners sat behind in an office or, sat away from the front desk, and they've separated themselves too far from what's going on. That's some of the biggest things. But when people own their own business, which is what a franchise is, um, they like to think, well, it's my business, I can do it how I like it, to do it.
Mm. Well, I'm sure that probably leads to, I don't know if resentment's the right word, but obviously if I was the franchisee and I was taking all the financial risk with regards to, the agreement and, franchise fees, all these sort of bits and pieces, and I look over at my negotiator who's earning probably, I know, earning more than me and taking none of that risk and just kind of, none of the stress that comes with running a business. They leave at 6 o'clock and see you later, see you on Monday sort of thing. I think
Yeah.
that would build up to some sort of resentment's probably the wrong word, but
Yeah.
not a good place to be. I'll put it that way.
I think that's right. I think it's, I suppose it's understandable in sometimes, but it's the balance is wrong, isn't it? Because you should always feel, as your business, you should always feel that you're benefiting from it. Otherwise, you're going to put your heart and soul, slog, hours, everything into it, and if you don't get out of it, what you feel you due, that's going to be tough, isn't it?
So let's come up to date with regard to sort of the more self-employed side of things, or should I say personal estate agencies? That's more I should do that. That's more of the TAUK sort of lingo in the grand
It
scheme of it.
is definitely, yeah.
What's the imagine I'm an idiot here, not much imagination needed. What's the difference? What's the if I said to you, oh Jane, I'm a self-employed estate agent, or I said, oh, I'm a personal estate agent. What's the difference? Why should the public care?
Well, I think self-employed estate agent is basically that's what it says on your HMRC return. That's just a financial status type of thing for you. I think that's all that is, because there's lots of self-employed, and indeed lots of businesses actually take on lots of self-employed staff now, don't they? And that's completely different, I believe, or we believe, to a personal agent with TAUK or other brokerage do exist. But with personal agency, I just think it's not a model, it's a standard rather than anything else. It's a standard you work to. And I just think it feels different to be a personal agent. That personal agent is in your local community. It links very much with you'll always hear us talking about being hyper local. It links with that because that personal agent will be with you from start to finish. You're not passing them around. They're in your local community. Um, yeah, they're centric to everything that goes on around that community. And to me, personal agency is they're invested. They are absolutely invested and local to your community.
So I'm gonna quote you now, if that's okay, because I do quite a lot of research for these podcasts. So you've mentioned before that freedom works when foundations are strong, which I love. That's
Okay.
I'm gonna get that tattooed somewhere.
Yeah.
So you've said it before. So what does that
Yeah.
actually look like, do you think, in the I was gonna say self-employed estate agent, but let's say personal estate agency world. What does that actually look like when you say that freedom works when foundations are strong?
Yeah. Well, I think, yes. Right. Okay. Well, for example, our personal estate agencies, uh, they they are able to do their role, go out and meet their clients, be in the community, and deal with all their properties and things there, because the background and the foundations is provided by TAUK. So those agents will have my customer hub team, which are an absolutely amazing customer hub. They're fantastic people. They're all ex-estate agents, really well trained. They answer calls from Rightmove, deal with agents' inquiries, all that sort of things. Lots of stuff I could go into, but the support-wise, they can provide. fantastic support, and they deal with those initial calls coming in, and they'll speak, but they'll sound like the agent. That they'll do everything in the same sort of way that that agent wants to be dealt with. And we also have a lot of structure, which is what some of the stuff that I've been brought in to provide from an operations side of things, which you don't often see, but you can feel that's happening, hopefully. But those are the foundations which enable the personal agent to do their greatest work and be a fantastic personal agent.
And I've met with your head office team quite a few times at various awards and Zoom calls and stuff like that. They're a busy lot. They got a lot of stuff
Yeah,
going
they
on.
are.
Like their phone rings a lot. Like they're popular people. So talk me through it. If you're an agent listening to this and you think to yourself, okay, this year I'm going to tighten up my foundations. I'm going to get my foundations solid in my business. Where do you think they should start? Should it be the processes, communication, the numbers, the mindset? Where's kind of block one they should be putting in place?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably difficult for if you're talking about a standalone personal agent, that's just independent, just on their own. I think that's a lot of work and a lot of prep that they need to do prior to that, because I think it goes back to all your compliance, making sure that's all in place and that it's easily accessible all the time. I think it's all about how you're registering your clients to be able to service them properly, and to keep records on them, to know all the birthdays, to be able, everything that matters to that client effectively, that you need to have. I think, so, and everything that comes with it, all your blinking HMRC, HMRC, your AML, all those different registrations and TPOs and all those to remember when they're due and how to Rise Wheel can remind you of all those.
Mm.
So I think the first things you'd have to do would be to make a list of everything you must have as an estate agent, regulatory that you must have. You're going to have a list of those, and you're going to have to go through those. Then you're going to have to work through, what does a sale look like? If I'm going to go out and I'm going to value a property, or well, even before that, but let's say I'll talk about the pre before that, but everything you're going to do for getting a property, getting it through to sale, you're going to have to document that process so that you know what you're doing. Okay, because most people that go self-employed have probably come from the traditional agency where they've done an element of that, this bit probably, and a negotiator's picked up other bits, and a sales progressor's picked up other bits, all those. You're going to have to try and fathom out the whole process, document it, and know where your letters are, what you're going to send at different times, when you're going to make calls, everything like that. That's a lot, isn't it?
And now you said it out loud, it does sound like a lot.
Yeah, because we haven't even got to the lead gen. How are you going to lead gen? Yeah.
So talk me through. So I think one of the hardest things of any self-employed model or personal estate agency model is sort of the support versus independence. So it's kind of, how do you make your agents know you're there to support them, but without sort of being their sort of pseudo boss, micromanager person who's kind of like telling them what to do. How do you walk that line between support versus sort of smother, I suppose?
Yeah, yeah. And it is a fine line. I do believe it is a fine line, but I think it's a line that collaboration, that's the biggest word that I think encompasses what it should be. I'm not saying it's always perfect, but collaboration is how it should be, because those agents need to trust that you've got their best interests at heart, and that how they succeed is really, really important to us. And I'm not talking about financially, I'm talking about that they also get to see their kids' Christmas play, that um, they can take their children on holiday at different times, those sort of things as well. It's not financial, obviously, links to that,
Mm.
but it's knowing those agents, and they get to trust you. It's it's not tell, it's persuade sometimes, and putting up a good reason why we believe something should be good, evidence why something's worked. and why it can repeating that can work again, because you're dealing with we've always got you I believe you've got to know that you're dealing with grown-ups who have made a decision to put everything into this, and a lot of those people have come from probably where I was when I talked about being, 33, 35, when I started off in a estate agency and everything, it meant everything. This was all or nothing. So everything's on the line. And we have got to always, always remember that. And I believe that fundamentally, as long as you don't lose that, that makes a big difference.
It's funny you mentioned that because I have a similar sort of mentality when I chat to our partner coaches. Then obviously there's it's they come to work, I come to work. It's about money is important in the grand scheme of things. But then we will chat about finance. And I'm like, I just want you to do well. Like I like monetary side of things. I don't like yeah fine like it's okay. I literally just want you to do really well. I want you to have a really great business. I want you to have time off with your friends, family. Go on a holiday, have a great time, and have a really good business. I was like, if we get like paid off the back of it, like cool, like great. I'm here for that. But like I just want you to do well.
Yeah. And I think, Chris, I think that's one of the biggest things that can get so easily lost. We get fixated, particularly in our business, on the bottom line numbers, and you can't lose sight of that. Obviously, you've got to have that in your sights. It's no good doing it for nothing, you know. You can't. Nobody can run a business and do it for nothing. And we're not daft enough to think along those lines. But the reality is that if people are happy and they're comfortable and the family around them, their support around them is comfortable in what they're doing, then that will make a huge difference. And often they'll go hand in hand. Because we all know you'll have been there in the past whereby when you start panicking and you're worrying about money and you're fixated on that, you don't win your valuations because the clients can feel that from you, that you've got this desperation in you rather than, and you don't get the clients that actually meet you in the same place. Personal agent won't be for everyone. Some people will want, the Connells of this world and all these different people because that's what they want. They're pretty brilliant. Let them crack on because there's plenty for everyone, you know. But you need to find your people.
So you segued me beautifully. So thank you so much, Gopal. So I want to talk about the human side of a state agency. So finding your people is absolutely fantastic. Link in there. So you have spoken openly before on podcasts and other outlets as well about motherhood with regard to mental health, with regard to the emotional load of being an estate agent as well. Why do you think it's so important that we talk about that side of a state agency?
Because it reflects exactly what our clients and customers will be dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And common ground is huge. And, you know, people like people, that's a thing, but people like them a lot of the time, don't they? You know, and if people can see and empathize with somebody going through a similar sort of situation, which is so common, will win business, but we'll also see them help them move. That's because that's the ultimate goal, isn't it? Is we want to help people move and service and solutions, that type of thing. But I think it's really good to be open. I think I don't cater to this that it's puts you as a weakness. I just don't. I did. I think I did. But these days, no. And I certainly, um, as a mum of three daughters and a son, I want to make sure, and I think I have, that they can always be open to their employers and the people around them, how they are, and be true to themselves because they're good enough. They're great how they are. That's what they were meant to be like.
We recorded a podcast episode, God, must have been about 6 months ago, and the person who was on it had a chat about being a single mum. And I was like, own it. Like, absolutely, you're a single mum, like, great. Like, you should be talking to people about your story on valuations and saying, this is who I am, this is why I'm working hard, this is what it means to me, this is how I'm kind of all in sort of thing. Don't hide those things away. So this is who I am, this is what's going on. And it'll either go, oh my God, what amazing, what a brave person you are, we're going to support you, or they'll go, you're not for us. But either
But
way, like, that's absolutely fine.
spot on. Because you see, if I were to hear that, I'd think, wow, that person is definitely going to be invested in getting my sale to completion, because they'll need that income. There'll be nobody more invested than she would be for me. But as you said, for some people, that might scare them and think, oh, no, no, we don't want, that's not for me. I'll go and get Joe Bloggs off the high street or whichever in his shirt and tie, and I'm sure he'll do a great job, and I'm sure he would, but it'd be a different job, you know. So yeah, it's critical.
Do you think the industry is getting better at recognizing sort of the human first sort of element of the job, or do we think it's still a long way to go?
Yeah, I think it is better. I think it is better. I still think there is some way to go, but I can see it in spades in terms of how we've come on in this last couple of years almost. And I see this next 5 years will be, I think, revelationary in terms of that, because I think it's coming more and more to light that people want that human back again in their life. I think I've spoken about this before, and other people where it's not special to me, but COVID changed an awful lot of things. I live on a traditional terrace street in the centre of York, and there's milk bottles outside a lot of the streets. They've got a lot of the doors, should I say, because they've got the milkman back again. Where was that 10 years ago? It didn't exist, did it? But it was something that person's in their community, and they want to support that person. If that isn't a shout out to wanting a local person, I don't know what is.
So people are wanting a person locally. Obviously, we can't not talk about personal brand and sort of building a personal brand in the local area.
Yeah.
What are some of the mistakes you see agents make who are trying to build a personal brand locally? What are the things they're doing wrong that are kind of holding them back from sort of being that sort of digital mayor, as Chris Watkins would say?
Mm, yeah. Well, I think for me, it's a lot about duality of brand, because I do think that personal agency, and as I said, that can be independent, but also backed up with the foundations of TAUK or whichever one it is. So I think that's about balancing duality of brand. That's important. But this person who's really there in the heart of it, I think what they do wrong is trying to go too big, too broad, try to cover up too much ground, be everything to everybody. It's not going to work. And also, we were only talking about it yesterday. We had an exec meeting yesterday, and we're talking about this yesterday. They choose too many, um, because there's an awful lot to go at. Lead generating tools. Oh, I'm going to do comp slips. I'm going to do door knocking. I'm going to do leaflets. I'm going to get this bit of tech, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do these letters, and I'm going to sit in the local pub. Oh, I'm going to sit in the cafe, and I'm going to all these things. Okay. And oh, yeah, I've got a valuation over here, which is 5 miles away. And I've got a valuation over there that's 10 miles away, totally opposite directions. I'm going to do all of it, because beggars can't be choosers mentality. And what that does, nothing ends up being consistent. So it's much better to choose one lead generating tool, be it a compliment slip or be it door knocking, for example, because to me, they seem like the most get to the root of the client most easily. But do one of them, do them consistently. And rather than going that 5 mile, that 10 mile around, try and get very, very hyper local, because this, all this means is that your travelling time is taken up. You're wasting that travelling time. You're going to do viewings backwards and forwards. That's going to cost you money going back and forward there. You're going to then potentially get, perhaps, you're going to find people that come to view that also don't live there, so that might push you further out, you know? It's much better to collaborate with other agents and to be able to pass that on to them, and this is where a network really comes in, but concentrate on your really hyper local area and be consistent with one thing, and then make sure you're seen just in the cafe perhaps, or if it's hyper local, you maybe have one pub and one cafe. Great, go on there.
Yeah, I think you described there perfectly something that I would call chasing the football, which is where you literally like imagine like a dog chasing the football around a pitch sort of thing. The dog never gets the ball; it's just always chasing after the ball. It's like just running around, running to the point you're like, I'm exhausted. You kind of here, there, everywhere. You never really sort of build a base of clients. You're just kind of wherever the phone rings, you kind of go to. So if you were a agent listening to this who felt a little bit uncomfortable putting yourself out there, because we can't talk about personal brand without putting your face in front of camera and
No.
podcasts and whatever it may be. What advice would you give someone who wants to put themselves out there? Because I think of Kelly, who's an agent with TA
Yeah,
UK. We did the TA UK podcast a couple of years ago, and I remember Kelly was terrified to go on the podcast or things,
yeah,
like physically nervous to say the least about coming on the podcast. And now, like, I see her on videos, I see her pitch going up there, and I'm like
yeah.
lighting the life out of it, sort of thing. So, what advice would you get agents or give agents to go from sort of where Kelly was, really nervous about putting herself out there, kind of where she is now, sort of facing in front of the camera all the time?
Well, I think you need to give yourself a reality check that, we're not all models, and, we're not we are as we are. We are as we are. If you're going on a camera and you're talking to people, it is no different. You're gonna look no different to how somebody sees you if you walk down the street. You might have good days and bad days. My hair might be probably worse today than it might have been if I spent a bit of time on it yesterday, for example. But in general speaking, I can't change the way I look. I can't change the way I sound. I can't change the way I am. So why is that any different to me saying hello to somebody in the shop to actually saying hello on a video, talking to an audience that I want to attract to me? And I think it's that mindset that you are who you are. So get comfortable with who you are, because otherwise there is no point being a personal agent really, because you're going to have to be comfortable in your own skin. And then, don't be so precious. What's the worst that can happen?
Mm.
And Kelly's she's smashed it out of the park. And I mean, you and I have met her, and as of a lot of other people. And, great example, Chris, putting that out there, because we, I looked at Kelly and I thought, my goodness, when she said things like that, you think, how can you even think that you can't look great on camera and you can't do that? Because in our eyes, she's stunning and she's got loads of, do you know? And so we all see each other differently, don't we? But we are us, aren't we?
I think the thing is that the more you do it, the less you, I want to say less you care, but the less you're like, it's like, oh, everyone knows what I look like or sound like already. I've done a couple of videos this week already. They know what voices like, they know what I sound like. So here we are.
Yeah, and, the people who you might have some people criticizing or sniping, or you might be concerned and think, "Oh god, what will so and so think?" But they'll have forgotten about that. They'll have forgotten about that in 2 hours, because something more will have come up that they can have a snipe at, or they can do like that. It doesn't matter, they aren't your people anyway, are they? Because you want the people who find you and think, "Oh, yeah, support them. If not, just do one."
I love that. It's all about being the Marmite. Whether you love it or hate it, you are being the Marmite. You're either on board with it, oh my God, it's the most amazing thing in the world, or you're like, oh God, I'd never sell with that person. I think, all right. Ugh. So, Jane, you've been very generous with your time. So, a couple of wrap up questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So, a little slightly quick fire on the last two. What's one thing you wish that agents would stop overcomplicating?
One thing they would stop overcomplicating: door knocking.
Yep.
Door knocking. I think it's something we're fearful of, naturally. I think, I would like to say that we should stop overthinking it. Just go and say hello. I've started a new business. I just wanted to introduce myself. Tell them what it is. I'm an estate agent. If you know anybody that wants to ever sell a house, let me know. That's it. Go. That's it.
My little bit of a tip of advice for this. So when I used to go door knocking, I said not that I enjoyed door knocking. And my goal was to ring the doorbell as fast as I possibly could do, or knock the front door as fast as I possibly could do from the point of getting out the car, so that I was like, I'm committed now.
Yeah.
I can't run away.
You can't overthink it, and then talk to them as if you would if you were meeting them, like you would.
Yeah.
That's it.
Final question: what excites you most about the future of personal estate agency?
Oh, wow. Well, that could be a big answer, but I'll try and keep it short. I'm just so excited to see the changes it's bringing and that customers are going to finally get the service that they truly believe and that we can raise that bar so that we're not sat down in the doldrums of, God, with the tax specialists and all the other people and I don't know, the toenail clipper people. Basically, where we want to be um, thought of in the highest regards. And, you know, I just see that it is improving. And that's what really excites me, that we've got such a massive opportunity if we stick to being true personal agents like I've described or tried to describe. The opportunity is massive.
Jayne, you've been a brilliant guest today. Thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. Thanks ever so much for having me.